Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is day 20 of Oracle Integration Training, and in this session we will talk about ATP database operation, where we will learn about how to invoke a stored procedure from OIC. So yeah, while continue all this process, we will see that how we can create PLSQL package in package, and then after how we will invoke that PLSQL package in OIC. So that all this we are going to cover in this session only. So before going to jump to the PLSQL packages and all, let's discuss about few scenarios which will have the real-time example of using the PLSQL packages and all. So let's see, for example, we have to consume data file from file server and data file having lots of records. And out of all these records, we have to just identify that valid record only, and that valid record we have to move further for next process. For this requirement, for example, we have one source system which is sharing us a CSV file which contain the candidate information. So that example, that who is implemented these applications, that candidate information is that they applied for the company. So all the candidate who apply for any specific job, so that CSV file contain that information of the candidate. So based on that, we have to just process that record into OIC, and we just have a business logic or business validations to just identify the record as valid or invalid, and all the validated record we have to process further for next process, so which is that we have to send over that email. And the email notification, it will like we are just sending that email to recruiter with the candidate details that this is the validated candidate, and you just have to process further for this validated candidate for hiring process. So that kind of things we have to cover. Sorry, just give me 1 minute. Okay. So that the kind of things we have to cover. So for that, I just have noted few steps that the flow which we have to follow. So in simple term, that first we will get the data file from file server, and whatever data we will get from file server into OIC, that records we will insert into a database table. So that a staging table we have created in ATP database table, where we will insert. And while inserting the record into table, we will make sure that the status column for that specific record will be new, as this is the new record which we are going to insert into database table. After that, we will invoke a PLSQL procedure. So in the PLSQL procedure, we will add a code. That code will identify that the record is valid or not, and it will be identified based on the business rules. So we'll see that what kind of business rules are there and all. And after identifying all the validated records, and obviously we will also validate find that error records too. So all the validated record again we will get in OIC, and we will iterate all the validated record one by one, and whatever record details will be there for the candidate, we will send all these informations over email to recruiters. So that kind of things we are going to implement. And for that error records, or that we consider as invalid records, we will create one CSV file in OIC. That CSV file will contain all the invalid records or error out record, and then we will send that records over email to respective team members or the user. So that we are going to cover. And over last, once we will receive the file or we will consume the file in OIC, we have to archive the file to archive directory. So that is our requirement, and we have to achieve that requirement in our integration. So how we can achieve that? So before going to start your development and all, we just have to figure out all these prerequisites and to start your development. So obviously, as the first prerequisite can be that as our requirement is to get the file from file server, then we will look for that the details, that what is the file server details and all. And as we have to validate the record based on business rules, so we will see that what all business rules are there for this requirement. And then we will see that where we have to archive the file, what are the database tables and all. And if we're not there, so as we are a developer, we have to create tables, peer procedures and all. And then we'll see that how we can achieve that one. So just for brief on the business rules, so they have three business rules specifically to identify the record as valid or invalid. So the first rule is that candidate is who is going to apply for the job. If they apply for OIC developer role, the experience should be more than 2 years. So if any employee having 1.5 years of experience and apply for OIC role, that will be considered as a error record or invalid record, because they are just hiring the person who is having two more than 2 years of experience in OIC developer role. So this is our first business validation business rules. Another rule is that if candidate apply for work from home options as a location, and yes, while applying this one, and they can apply for any role, but they should have experience 10 or more than 10 years of experience. If any candidate apply for work from home, the candidate have should have 10 or more than 10 years of experience. then only they will be eligible, or that will be considered as valid record, except that Redwood developer. For example, any of the developer or any of the candidate apply for Redwood developers and they don't have 10 years of experience, that will also consider as a valid case, as they accept this from the witness validation rule. Third rule is that whatever candidate we have there, right, for the candidate we have information as PAN card too. So PAN card number, whatever we have, that should not be less than 10 digit. If any employee or any candidate given invalid or incorrect PAN card, we are not going to process that candidate for interview round, or not going to share that information over email. So that we have to configure as a business rule, and based on this rule only we will validate, identify that record is valid or error dot record or invalid record. So that's we are going to just write PL/SQL package to do all these validations. Now after doing that one, so just we'll have details on the requirement too, so which contain that the source system. So in this case we got to know our source system is SFTP file server, from where we are going to get file, and that file can be placed by any third party system from where we are getting this candidate information. And target will be our email notification. In actual while working on project, your target can be invoking any REST APIs to perform operations in Oracle Fusion, or invoking any SOAP web services to perform operations on any other third party system. That can be implementation. So as of now, for this our requirement, it's the target system is email notification. And what kind of file format we are going to receive from file server? So we are going to receive CSV file from file server. File pattern will be that file name will start from FOAS underscore, and it can be anything timestamp and any other information, and ended with .csv. And what will be the source directory from where we will get the file? So this will be the source directory, and after receiving the file in OIC, consuming and processing, we have to archive the file, and then archive location will be this one. So it's there. And what will be the list of email user which we have to send an email to validate the records, or that the error records? So these two are email IDs, and it can be more than two also. And this below are the simple files. So here you can see this simple file having the name, having the date of birth, having the role they applied for, and having the years of experience and the locations for which they applied, and this is the PAN card information. So these are the details. So let's move to the practical part where we will see the implementation of this requirement. So before going to start, let's have a look on data files. You can see this is the data file which we will receive from at file server, and this data file having that candidate information which applied for job in our organization, for which we implemented this OIC and all. And you can see these are the roles, these having the experiences, locations. You can see few locations having work from home, and these are the PAN card information. So all this data we have, and this data where we will get this data at file server. So this is our file server where we will get the data, and you can see this is the same location which mentioned in our requirement document. So for example, this is our requirement document. So the requirement document is stored the source directory as OIC prod inbound interface candidates. Same you can see OIC prod inbound interface and candidate. Inside that we have the data file which we will receive from third party system, and this is the archive folder where we have to archive the file after processing. So we got to know about the source system. Target system is email notification. These are the email details, and this is our file. We got to know the file is already there. Now we have to create database table. Before going to create integration, we have to create database table, so that whatever data is there in the data file, we can load this data into table. So let's have a look on that SQL developer tool we are using to perform operations on database. So we'll see that one too. So you can see this is SQL developer where I just have a short query for creating the sequence. So we already discussed that why we are using sequence. We are using sequence to provide a unique values to for each and every record. So that's why this sequence is listed here. So I just have to create sequence first, and I given the name as FOS candidates table sequence, and this sequence I am using as a default value for the row ID record ID, so that while inserting data to this record ID, we don't need to pass this row ID anymore, and it will be automatically inserted using this sequence. And here you can see these are the six column we are going to get from files. So they can see candidate name, candidate job, candidate date of birth, applied role, experience, location, and PAN. All these are the six column which we are supposed to get from file server. You can see the file having the six column. So these are the six column, and remaining columns are that the who columns and the supportive columns, that metadata we can consider. So the first two column is status and process message. So initially I told you our requirement as when we will insert data into table. While inserting, we will make sure that we pass that status as an EW new, so that that in PLSQL while writing the code we can identify that this the first new record which we directly received from OIC. And then after we'll do validations, and after doing the validation we will convert that status or change the status to validated or error. So this we are going to do using PLSQL. And after that you can see we have few informations related to integration instance details. That integration instance details, when we were talking about that instance id and integration id. So integration instance id is something that in generation 3 we know that we have the varchar value, and this instance id we will consider as a group for this all record. For example, we run this integration get loaded file from file server, and the file contain thousands of record. So this integration id will have the same value for all these thousand records. So just like we know that in our generation 2 we had integration id as a numeric value. So we'll see that how we can achieve this, creating that instance id as a numeric value in OIC generation 3. And these are the basic information we want to store in tables, so that later on whenever we require we can identify that who inserted the record into this table, when it's created, and when some other programs updated the records. All these things we can get to know. So let's create this table first. So I just created this table here. So I'm just going to execute this one. So the sequence created, after that we have to create this table. So I will share this code after the session, so that you don't need to be write this code again and again. So you can see our table is also created, and if I will query this table we will not get any records in the table. So if I will just have a look on that, select a star from this table. So we don't have any records inside the table. So now let's move to the OIC, where we will first create OIC to get file from file server, then insert data into this table, and then later we will create PLSQL package, and we'll do how we will check how we can do validations and all. So let's move to that OIC instance. So this is our OIC instance where we just have to create the integration. So obvious, before going to create integration we just have to create connections. We require two connections, one connection for ATP, this connects this one, and another connection we required for file server. So in our previous session we already created all these connections. So let's have a verify of the connections. So go to connections, and the two connection we already created, and we created connections name as FOAS underscore. Let's see. So this is ATP connection which we already created earlier. So invoke FTP connections, this is also the same connection which we created. So if you will look for this connection, which all integrations are linked with this. So these all are the connections integrations which we created, FTP into 001, 002 and all. So this is the FTP connection which we can utilize. And if you want to check, so just click here to view, and here you can see this is the host port and that user. This is the same FTP user which we have the file server. You can see the host 84.8.6510. This is the same host and the same user OIC prod and all. So same user we have. So this is our file server connection for file server already created with this name. Let me copy this name here. So let me copy this name somewhere in the notepad, so that we can utilize that one. Somewhere I have make a note of this one. So let's me check. So this is our FTP connection. Let's have a look on ATP connection. So this is our ATP connection which we already created. You can see FOS underscore ATP underscore connections. If you look for the ATP connection and which all integrations are linked to that, so let's have a look on that. So this is the connections which we already this is the integration which we utilized in our previous session. So the same connection we can utilize just for verifying or verification purpose. You just have to click on this ATP connection here to verify the is this the same. So you can see wallet ATP is our service user or the database user, ATP user, and this is the same which we are using in our SQL developer. So if you will go, this is our connection FOS APCon. Right click here, go to properties, and here you can see ATP user is our user, right? And these are the ATP details and all. So this is the same database connection which we are utilizing. So let me unlock this connection, as it's showing that the lock some by someone else. So Let's have unlock to this connection. Now our all connections are ready to use. Let's go back to the integration. So as we have to read the data from file server, and that can be the that obvious, that can be scheduled on any specific time, so that it in every time integration will automatically execute. It will get the file from server and process. So we'll create schedule integration so that the user don't want to run this integration and again. Let's give the name as FOAS underscore candidate process underscore SCINT. Schedule integration candidate process, that's fine. Click on create. So now we created integration. By default, we are getting two endpoint, that's schedule and stop. So we know that we created schedule integration. That's perfectly fine. Now we just have to first find the file name from file server. As you can see, our file name that we are going to get from file server, that file name can contain any random values just like timestamp and all, which is not fixed. So we cannot directly read the file from file servers. That's why first we will list the file and we'll see that how many files are there available here in this location. So before going to add FTP connection, I generally use assign to create few variables, so that in the variable we can assign all these default values which we are going to use in our further integrations. So first this assign, I will give the name as default assign, and we'll create variables. So how many variables we require? So we'll try to create integration one by one, and whatever we will think that we have to use, we will come back to this endpoint and we will create variable. So as of now, we know that we have to read the file from here, this location, and we know that the file pattern is FOS underscore. So these two variable we know that, and we also know that archive file directory. So these three variables first we will create. So let me have a first variable name as var underscore source file directory. And what is our source file directory? So this is our source file directory. Same has been mentioned in that the requirement document. Here you can see this is the same directory which I took from here, and same I have to mention here. So this is the source directory. Instead of that, you can also utilize the lookup. So I have not explained lookup yet, so once I will explain, I will utilize that lookup too in our integration. So file source, where source file is created, directory created, and now we have to create the directory for archival file. So I will give the name as var underscore source file archive directory. And what is the directory? So this is the directory archive folder. So I will just copy this path from here. So we given the archive file directory too. Now we have to create one variable which can store the file name pattern. So file name pattern is something that starting from FOAS underscore. So I will give the same here, var underscore file name pattern. And what is the pattern? So we know that pattern is something that this one, that is star. And what is the file format? The file format is .csv. So I will give the value as .csv here, where file format, and it's like .csv. So this variable we created. Now we know that to whom we have to send an email. So we already have a list of email user, these two. So I will make this two here. So as we have to use notifications, I will use var underscore om underscore to email. So to email is that our two user, that, and comma second email. So these two our two email. And obvious we need to, from email to. So from email we always use that no reply at oracle.com. So we'll use var underscore from email, and from email is something that no reply at oracle.com. And yeah, so basic information we added here. Let's move to the integration part, and we'll remember we will add all this one by one. So here just variable creation part is done. So now first we have to list use a ATP connection with list operations. FTP connection will list operations so that we can check that how many files are there. So I will use FTP connection, sorry. So what was our FTP connection name? So this was our FTP connection name. Let's me have a copy here. And before going to create FTP connections, so if you remember, I told you about the instance ID, this instance ID, and this instance ID is given as a number. So if you remember in generation 2, we have that unique numeric values as an instance ID, so that the integration having the unique values, a unique number as an instance ID. So how we can generate this unique number? In OIC, we can generate this unique number by various approaches, that we can create sequence in OIC and we can get the sequence value we can create sequence in database and we can extract the sequence value in OIC, that we can utilize one or another things we can do. So we know that we have timestamp, right? So for example, our timestamp in system is showing that 11/19/2024 9:47 p.m. right? So for the same, if OIC, we have the current function, right? Current date function. That current date function is giving us a current date time, that current date time function. So what we can do, we can convert that current date value into the desired format. So what desired format can be, for example, our current date is something like that. Today we have 19/11/2224, and right now we have 9. What is the time? 9:48, right? So 9:48 p.m. For example, this is our current date is giving this date, right? So this date we can convert as a timestamp. So how we can convert a timestamp? Just like we are getting file at file server with the timestamp value. You can see 2024 11 18 20 12 50, right? So this consider as a numeric value, right? So same approach we can utilize to generate our instance ID. So how we can achieve? You can see this is the syntax for that. So first here you can see we have date time function. This date time function is giving us the date in our desired format. So what we will do, so this is our current date function. This current date function is giving us this data. So this data we will convert into this format. And what is the format? You can see year, month, day, hour, minute, second. So once we will use this function, this complete functions, this complete set of code with function will convert this date into the below format. So what format will be there? So 2024, and 11 is the month, 19 is the date, 09 is the time. So 09 will be converted as 17, 12 7 9 21, and 48 is the minute, and second something, let's say that 55 is the second. So this value will be converted into this values, and seems as a numeric values, right? So this value we will utilize as a instance ID in OIC, and this instance ID value we will insert into our database table in this column, instance ID column, and integration instance ID will be that generation 3 varchar to instance ID, right? So that's perfectly fine. So let's back and let's see that how we can use this one. So just go to that integration. So while we created variable, we will create that one, we will create one more variable with timestamp name, and that variable will store this value, right? So this expression. So just create one variable, give the variable name as var timestamp, and how this timestamp will configure. So first we know that we have that current date function. Current date will return only date, but we want time too, so I will use current date time. And here you can see when you use current date time function, right? So we have these functions, that is that the format date time function, the format date time function accepting parameters as a string. So as this current date time function returning date kind of values, so we have to convert this date type value into a string. That's why we have a string function in OIC. So what we will do, this is our function, so we will convert this function, this date time value, into a string value. So for that we have a string. I just make a cut here, right? So here you can see this is the value. So I just have a cut here so that I can drag the string function here. So this string function is responsible for taking any value as a parameters and converting that value into a string. So now using this expression, our value, that our date time, will be converted into a string values. Now a string value we will pass to the date format date time functions. This format date time functions will take a string values of date and it will convert into this desired format. So this is our desired format. So let's me cut this value again so that I can drag this format date time function. So you can see format date time function I dragged here, and here you can see the format date time function is taking first value as a date time and then the format. So I will just remove this date time and provide the our code. So you can see the current date time with a string, and now the format will be the same that which I already taken, right? So I will share this format with you too so that you can also use. So instead of format, so as this is the string value, I will provide in the single quotes here. So now here you can see if I will click here, so this variable var underscore timestamp is going to hold the value date time value in a numeric format. So this format, so y0001 defines that the year. This y001 defines that year in a 4 character. M01 defines that month in 2 character. D01 defined as a day in 2 characters. So same like hour, minute, and second. So this is our timestamp done. So just go outside and add the FTP connections to get file from file server, and this is our FTP connection. So I'm just going to add ATP FTP connection here. So this is our FTP connection. So first we have to list down the file from file server. So I will use operations as a list. So I will give the name here list FTP. Now go continue, and here you can see we have to select the operation as list file, and it list file is asking these values input directory file name pattern. So here I will just provide anything, and this will be override in the mapping as we have value in the variable. So variable cannot be mapped here directly because while listing we don't have option to map the variable, so that we will provide the variable map this mapping into the mapping only, mapping of this one. So let it be the exclude file name pattern, and nothing, I don't want to provide anything here, we'll provide in the mapping only. So that's done, file name pattern here and all. So here we already discussed the list recursively. It means that it will check the file inside the subdirectory too, but we don't want to include the subdirectory for listing the file. That's why we will not select that one too. So here I will remove the tick, and that's fine. Click on continue and finish. Just go to the mapping of FTP connection where we have to provide the mapping of source directory and the file pattern. So here once you will expand this value, you will be able to get the header, and inside the header you will have the file name pattern. So we already have one variable which is going to contain the patterns name. So variable name as that file name pattern. So I will map this file name patterns here, and this is the directory, right? So which directory we have to pick? So this is the source directory, so which I already have file that where source file directory. So I will map this here. So by mapping providing this mapping, this node the endpoint will have these two details. Based on that, it will just have a look on, it will get the list of file present on that specific source directory. So now after getting this file from source directory, so we directly blindly not go and download the file, right? So before that we have to check that do we have file at file server or not. So for checking that one we have to use switch statement. Statement allow us to add a condition. So I will add the switch statement here. And in the switch statement, we just have to check the count of this list file response. So whenever this list file is going to execute in response, it will give us the count, total count of file available in the system, and the number or name of the all files. So here I will expand the list file. This is the response. As you can see below are the requests. So above is the response. Expand, you will see that list file response. Once you will expand, you will be able to see the count here. You can see item count is something that total number of file present in that specific directory which we provided in the request mapping. Now we have to check if item count is greater than 0. If our item count is greater than 0, then only we have to process further. So let's give the root name as, if give the name file count is more than 0. This is the name I given to the switch. So click outside, our switch statement is added. And for example, if we don't have file at file server, then what we have to do? So if we don't have at file server, we don't want to do anything, so we will just display the log message. So just go and add the otherwise case. Otherwise case will execute if you don't have the file. So in otherwise case, I will just add the notification, or instead of notification I will just add the logger. Or we can also add the notification only. So let's add the notification so that we can also get the information and email. This is our notification. I will drag it here, give the name as no file found underscore notification, and here we have to provide the mapping for two, so which we already created variable. So I will drag this variable here to email. That's done. CC I don't want to provide, BCC I don't want to provide, from I will provide. So from which we already have the variable that from email. Now subjects, what we have to give subject? So we have to give subject as candidate candidate interface status file not found, because we know that this notification will only execute when we don't have file, as we added condition, so we just provided the hard coded value here, file not found. In the body again I will do the same, that hi team, there is no file present at source file directory, please check. Regards, OIC support team. I have already created a template for email notification. I will show you that one too. So till now that's fine. And for example, here we get the count as greater than 0. It means we have file at file server, right? And it is possible that we can have more than one file, right? So instead of going for more than one file, we will just look for only one file only at a time, right? So what we can do, we just have to add a here FTP connection to download the file from file server. And which file we have to download? So we have to download the file coming in the response. So I will add the FTP connection here again. So we'll use the same file name FTP con, and I will give the name, as I'm going to download the file, give the name as download file FTP, continue, and here we have to select operation as download. Selected the operation as download, we have to give the directory, input directory from where we have to download, file name, what file name we have to download, and where we have to download. So this is the OIC virtual directory, so I will give the directory as temp, and here this two we will provide in the mapping, because we don't have this two idea, we don't have idea about this file name, we have the idea about the directory, and that directory information is available in the variable, and the variable cannot be mapped here, right? So we'll provide this two in the mapping only. Just click on continue and finish. So as download directory we given, that download directory is from in OIC where we have to download, just we have to provide the mapping for where, from where we have to download, and what is the file name which we have to download. So just expand, you can see the file name. So file name we will get from the list file, you can see we have the list FTP. So in list FTP, if you see list file, inside that you will get an array element, you can see file is an array element, and inside the file we have the file name. It means that, for example, if our file server having two files, right, two files here in the same location, so this file list file response will have two records here, right? And if you will directly map this file here, it can create a problem if you have multiple files, right? But our requirement is to just suppose we have only one file only at file server, so we directly mapped here. If we have to process multiple files too, we can add a loop over this list file response, but as of now we don't require that one. But again, as a developer, I don't want to do any mistake. So for example, if user placed two file over there, so I will just create integration in a such a way it will process only one file, it will not process second file. So for that, you can see this file node is our array element, right? And we know that array index start from 0, right? So first record will have index as 0, second record will have index as 2. So you can see this is our file element, file name, file node name is a array element. Inside the file we have file name. Same if you will see in the mapping, this is file name, that is the child node, which is our the file name, and here you can see this is the file, this file is the same as array element. So as this is array element, we can extract or we can get data based on the array too. So I will add a square bracket, and I just want to get first record or first value only coming from the array list, so I will give as first one here. So I'm saying that whatever number of file you will get in response as a list file, just map first record only. That's why here we have file of 1. This is the square bracket and this is the symbol of array, extracting data from array. So now we just provided the mapping here. So what it will do each and every time, if we have only one file, that's fine. If we have two file in the response, so it will take only first record only by providing these this mapping, right? So now we given the file name, we have to provide the file directory from where we have to download. So file directory, all we know that list file also contain the directory where the file is placed. So I will provide the mapping here. And this is a download directory. This directory I already given in the configuration, so no need to pass it here. Just click on validate. Go back. So we added the FTP connections to download the file from file server. After downloading the file, we have to read the file in OIC, right? So obvious, to read the file in OIC, we required stage file. So I will just add the stage file here. So I'm just going to add a stage file here. In the stage file here, we are going to read the file. So just for example, let's consider that we have less file only. So as we have very less file, we will just, instead of going for a stage file read in segment, we will directly go and read entire file operations. I will give the name as read stage. Select the operation as read entire file. You can select read file in segment also as per your requirement. So let's have a read entire file only in this situation. And here you can see it asking that do we have file reference or not. So yes, we have file reference coming from this download FTP response. So instead of providing the directory from where we have downloaded in OIC and what is the file name, I will just provide the file reference. So I select yes here, and this is the response. I will just provide the mapping from here, the download file FTP. Click here to provide the mapping. So here is, this is the download file FTP. This is the response. Expand this one. You can see the response. Expand. You will see ICS file. Inside the ICS file, we have the file reference. So this is the file, and this is the file reference. So I will drag this file reference here. So now we provided the mapping here. As I don't want to remove any trailer and all, so that's fine. Just click on continue. As it asking that we are going to read the file, from OIC, right? So we have to provide the file structure, what kind of file we are going to read. So our file is CSV file. We know that CSV is there. Here we have to upload the sample file. And what will be our sample file? This is the file we are going to get from file server, right? And for this file, we have to create one sample file. So let me copy this column, and I will create one sample file using this name only. So I will just go and add here data file. I give a folder candidates, and here I will create the CSV file and give the name as sample file, sample candidate file dot csv, as we given the extension as CSV. So save. So our sample file is created. So this is the same sample file we will provide while reading the file. So go to this integration again, and here I will just select the sample file which we added. So this is data file candidates, and this is the sample file which we created right now. So just open. So now you can see sample file added here. Here we have to provide the record R, record set RS, and here what we will do again, if we'll see. So last time, if you remember, why we were not getting this sequence, the record ID in our table, record ID in the table. So as you can see in our table, we don't have primary key here. You can see in this table we don't have primary key. So as we don't have primary key in our table, right? So that's why FTP sorry, this is the read only, right? So in read will not required. I will show you that one while inserting. So that's fine. Here you can see, here we have the column as optional. So we'll mark all the column as optional, so that if in the file, right, if in the file, if we don't have any record for any of the row, that can also be loaded. So that's why I'm just going to consider all this row as optional. But OIC is not going to allow to make all column by optional. Any of the column we have to make as primary or the mandatory. So I will make sorry, I will make the first column as mandatory. Just continue and finish. Using this way, we will be able to read the file from OIC directory, which we downloaded from the previous step. Now here in this response of this endpoint, we will get the file data. Now the file data we have to insert into table, and we know that ATP endpoint, ATP connection allow us to insert or import bulk data into table. So I will just, instead of looping over this record, I will just use ATP connections to load the data into table as an array. So this is our ATP connection which we created, FOS ATP count. I will use this one. Here we have to insert the records. I will select insert ATP. I will select the operation as perform an operation on table, and here we selected operation as insert. That's fine. Go continue. Here we have to provide the schema name, schema of the database where we created the table. So as of now, if you will go to the SQL developer, we don't know what is the schema of this table. So to check the schema of table, we have a query. Query is like select a star from all object. So by this executing this query, you will get to know all the object available in this database. So you can see this is a object name column, and object can be your edition, object can be your synonyms, table, index, anything. So as I have my table name, so I will just search with the table name only. So I will search where object underscore name object name is equals to name equals to this one, so that when you will query you will be able to see the your object here, and this information will give you the more information about the table. So you can see this is the owner is the schema of this table, so owner who is ATP user. So I will select the owner here, ATP, and here we have to provide the table name to search. So what are our table name? So this is our table name where we have to insert the data. So I will put this table name here, and this is table only, not the synonyms or view or any indexes and all. So just click on search. So if it will find this table name inside the schema, you will get below. So it's there. Just click here and import in left hand side. Click on import table so that this import table will be imported in your OIC canvas of you of this connection. Now here we have to, here you can see when we try to add the table, so as our table doesn't have any primary key, that's why this endpoint is asking to select any of the key as a primary key. And again, if you will select this record ID as a primary key, so while from the mapping of this endpoint it will ask to provide this value, but our requirement is not to pass the value to this record ID, because the record ID is set with the default value as sequence. So instead of record ID, I will mark any of the column as primary key. Continue and continue again and finish. So now in the mapping we have to provide the data, which data we want to insert into table. So let's have a look on that. So this is our endpoint, and in the mapper this is the insert ATP mapper of this endpoint. In the insert ATP mapper, if you will see, let's have a double click here. So here you can see this is the mapper, and again you can see FOS candidate table. This is our table name, is the array element that we can import bulk data into this table, and these all are the element table columns, right? Table nodes, and you can see from where we will get this data to map. We will get data from the read. So you can see we have read stage. So you will expand the read stage. You will get the array element also here. The record as a array element. You can see R for record. So now this array element I will map with this array element. Record ID I don't want to map because it will be considered as a default. I will insert a default value from sequence. Now candidate name will map with this name column. Candidate DOB will map with this DOB column, and the role apply will map with this role column, and the experience will apply map with this experience, location with location, and pan with pan. So as this is the first time when we are inserting this record into table, that's newly recorded table, so we'll give the value as a status as new. So just right click here, provide the value as status as new, or I will give the message as an, and process message I will give as new. Yeah. Now here you can see this is the integration instance ID. So this integration instance ID we will get from metadata. So expand this metadata at runtime. We will get the instance ID. So I will drag this instance ID here, and this is the instance ID. This instance ID is something that we added additional concept to hold the unique value, and that unique value we consider as the simple as a timestamp. So that timestamp we already inserted in the variable, that is the where timestamps. I will map this timestamp here. Now you can see this is our integration name. So which is our integration name? So integration name we will get from metadata only. So this is our integration name. Integration version, again I will map from here. So sorry, this is identifier, I wrong map wrong value, so remove this one, and this version I will map here and save, so that mapping will be changed to version. Now creation date, so from where we will get the creation date? So again I will get the creation date from the function which we have, current date time, right? So this current date time I will use as a creation date, and created by again our OIC user who invoked integration, and last updated by again will be the same as of now. uh, can you come again? Can you please mute yourself? uh, and here we have to mark for invoked as a last updated by. So our our mapping is done. Can you please mute yourself? Sam, who is there? Sorry for disturbance. So now our mapping is done, and we just have to just validate the mapper and go back. So now our integration is still here to ready. So what it will do, it will just start, it will create few variable which will hold few sample data, and after that it will list the file from file server. If we will have the file, then it will process further and it will download the file from file server, the same file, and then it will read the file, and whatever data it will read, it will insert data into ATP table. So till now we are done with integration. So let's run this integration and let's see that this we are working, this it is working or not. So right now we have not added the archive concept. We will add that archive concept too later. So now just remove the integration error just by adding the business identifier. Just click outside here. So our integration doesn't have any error. So it's in configure status, save. It will be changed to configure, and just activate this integration. Go back. We have to activate this integration. Our integration is ready to run. So let's move to run page. And before running, let's see that we don't have any data in the table. So you can see we executed and our data doesn't store any records. So now done. Just I'm going to click on run. So before run, I just let make sure that we have file at file server. Yes, we have the file at file server. Just go back and run. So here you can see we have one issues in the integrations. I just realized. So what is the issue? The file pattern we added to list, that file pattern is not having the correct values. So if you will go to the file name pattern, file name pattern is having FOAS underscore. That FOAS underscore is not our file, right? So to make that random values, we have to add a star here. So just we have to add that FOAS underscore star as a file name pattern. Just click outside. I just realized while running that one, so that I thought that, oh, it will not list the file from server, as it will not find the pattern. Without a star, pattern will not be work. So now done. So integration is activated. Let's run this integration, and we have to just click on this run button to run this integration. This integration will execute, and first it will create a variable. That variable will hold values whatever mapping we provided. So you can see the assignment, the default assign is the action we added, and this action we added few variables. You can see all these variables, and this variable is holding the few variable details. You can see these all are the variable which we assign. And here you can see the last, we have the timestamp. You can see where underscore timestamp, and the timestamp is storing the same value which we given as a timestamp, right? 2024 11th is the month, 19th is the date, 16 is the hour, 45 is a minute, and 58 is the second. So this time is just related to OIC timing only. The OIC time zone whatever is there, it's following. So don't be confused about the time which going to be differences. Now after that we created variable where you can see we added the ATP to list the file. If you will expand what we passed values as a file pattern and the directory where we have to list the file, and in the response you will be able to see the file name. You can see this is the file name, this is the directory where this file is there. So by using these two we downloaded the file from file server in the condition, and you can see message route through switch route with condition item count is greater than 0. That's true. We have item count as 1 as we have only one file at file server. And after that you can see it's just added the we just added the FTP connection to download ATP FTP connection to download the file. And if you will expand this one, you can see while downloading the file we provided the value that this is the file we have to download and from this directory. And let me refresh this again so that it can show all the data. And you can see after the download, if you in response, you can see in response we got the file reference. This is the same file reference we used while reading the file. And if you go below, you can see this is the endpoint. We added a stage file reads stage to read the file. And in read the file response, you can see processed by read stage, we have the data of the file which we have to read, right? You can see these all are the data of the file. And after that you can see what we have done, we added the insert ATP, and insert ATP we are passing the same data. You can see these all are the same data we provided in the array format, and this data we are just having to insert into table, and you can see in the it's inserted. Let's have a look on this table and see that the record inserted or not. You can see all the record inserted into table with the details. Record ID it's coming automatically from the sequence as we added this sequence here, and this is the six values coming from file. And after that we have a status as new, and here you can see this is the integration instance ID, that 2G last. You can see track instance. If I will go, this were our instance ID, and if you'll see this is the same instance ID we have here. And using this instance ID also you can see that how many records or which records are there in that one, right? And you can see this is the instance ID we make as a timestamp, integration name, integration version, creation date, created by, last updated by, and last updation date. All these are there in the table. So now we have to write PL/SQL package to change this status from new to success or validate or error. So for that we have to write PL/SQL package. So let's begin with the PL/SQL code only. So let me have a new sheet here, and we just have to start with the package definition first, then we'll go for package body. So for creating the package we have few syntax which we have to follow. So I just have already created one package, so I will just copy this code here, and this is the code that create or replace package. These all are the keyword, and this is the package name which we want to give. So I want to give the name as FOS CNDIDAT candidate package, candidate INTF for interface PK package. And now this is a start, so just have to add the package too. So and this is the same name we have to give. And in the package what all functions or what all procedure we want to create. So we want to create one procedure which will validate the record, so that we have to create one procedure. So for creating the procedure, this is the syntax I already created earlier. So let's have a copy, and the syntax is this is the validate customer. I will give the name as validate candidate, and this procedure will have the parameters. So this procedure will validate the record based on, so for example this is our table, right? This table can have lots of record, right? Lots of record coming from different batches. It means that different integration. So all these records will have different instance ID, right? So we are not just going to pick all the records and do the validations. We will just do the validation on a specific record based on that instance ID only, right? Instance ID, or we can use this timestamp, or we can use integration instance ID, anything, right? So for that we just have to take instance ID as a parameters, so that it can be identified that this instance only we have to pick. Just like we will see that select a star from this table where instance ID is this instance ID, right? For example, let me run this integration again. So how many records are there right now? We have 10 records, right? So let me run this integration again, so that it will be 20 records, right? Same record will be inserted again, so that I can skip to picking the the previous file or the previous record. So this integration is just about to finish. It's downloading the file. Now exited, integration got completed. Go back and search. So if you will search, you will be able to see few more records. You can see total 20 records, and the 20 records having different instance ID. Let me show you that one. So this instance ID has ending with 2G, and above is ending with RQ. The RQ is the latest instance ID. You can see the latest instance ID. So now whatever operation we have to perform on the based on instance ID only. That's why in the procedure only I given the parameters as instance ID. And we want that whenever this package will be completed, we want to get a status as success or error, right? So let me remove this additional value here, and here these two are the parameter for the function. And as these two parameters, the first parameter is in parameters, it means that this is the parameters which we have to pass the value, and this out type parameters define that this procedure will return the value. So this p underscore status we will get in OIC, and this p underscore integration unique ID we will pass from OIC. That's why here we have in. So if we are not passing anything here, by default every parameter is considered as a in, it means in only. Right, so this is our procedure which we created, PL/SQL package procedure, which this is called a definition of package. So now we have to create the body of package. So just you have to compile, your package will be created. So for creating the body of package, I will just copy the same code here, and here after package we have to just add a body. So this is the body which we created. This is the body, and here having the function. Now we have to provide the functions declaration. So we'll use as is a keyword, and begin, and again I will use this and of this procedure. So the package is started, so any of the package cannot be empty, that's why it's showing error here. So I just have to add the code. So first I have to add the code. So before adding the code, so we have to perform operations, right? And we have to perform operations on the records. So records, which all records having the integrations unique ID as a ID which we will get while running this or while invoking this procedure. So we have to write a code. So which code we have to write? So just we have to write the same code here. Select a star from this table. This already there, sorry. Where this integration instance ID we will pass from OIC. This instance ID is equals to, this is the instance ID, for example, right? So you can see when we will execute this code, it will return us the records only have linked with this instance ID. You can see this instance ID having only 10 records. Now this same query we will use in our cursor. So in PL/SQL there is a cursor concept which hold the SQL select statement results. So I will use cursor. Cur is the name, or let's give the name as candidate cursor is, and here we have to write the SQL queries. So this is our query. So this will every time it will not be fixed, right? So this will be coming from where? This will be coming from while invoking this procedure, and this will be hold in this variable. So I will just replace this hard coded value by this variable name. So at runtime whatever value we will pass to this parameter, this will be replaced here, and it will pick data based on this one only. Right, so now cursor is done. So right now I don't want to create any variable, as I didn't think so that we required. Later we will require variable, I will add variable here. Now here we just have to, for example, this is giving 10 records. So this 10 record will be held in this loop variable, this cursor variable. Now we have to iterate loop over this cursor variable. To iterate loop over cursor variable in PL/SQL, we have the for each concept. I will use for each loop for 4, and this is the lookup, sorry, this is the cursor name. So I will, and this cursor name for example holding the 10 records. So all this 10 record one by one iterate, and it will store in one of the variable. That variable is considered as a loop variable. So here we have give the name, we have to give the name. So I will give the name as x. So this is the syntax for writing the for each loop, for loop for this cursor loop. And so this is the syntax for loop in PL/SQL. So here we added the code that for x in cursor So this cursor variable, each and every record will be inserted into this loop variable, and this loop variable we will use in our OIC, and that we will use inside this loop. So now here you can see this loop will iterate 10 times as of our example. Somewhere we are getting this error, so let's see. Validate candidate, that's true. Begin and before that we have to handle the exceptions too, so we'll add the exception. So see PTI on exceptions. When others, then let's see that which error we are getting, we will solve for. And now here you can see, so this X will hold the records of this cursor. So for example, here we executed this query, so this X variable will hold this record at one time, right? In first iteration, next iteration it will hold this record, third iteration it will hold this record. So now inside this body we have to add the conditions. So let me see, I had done already the same. So the procedure having this cursor is, let's see, that's, yeah, same we added, and after that we start begin. 4x is the same, 4x in x in, this is the cursor variable, that cursor for loop, yeah. So now here you can see inside the loop we have to iterate each and every record, and which will check the business validations. So what is our business validation? So let's have a look on that. So our business validation is that we have to check that if any candidate applied for OIC developer role, that candidate should have experience more than 2 years. So where is this candidate role and the experience? So if you will see the table, so this is our table. So let's have a query here only, so that every time I don't look to go in there. So what is the column name for Joe, for position? So the role applied, right? So here we have to add the if condition. So I will use if x dot role applied is equals to, what is this one? The OIC developer. OIC developer. So this is the value. Let me copy the same value here from here only. So if the records which we are going to process using the loop variable having the row applied role as OIC developer, and experience, right? So they is saying that experience should be more than 2 years. It means that we have to check and experience. So x dot experience, I just copy the header by clicking right click here and copy selected row header. So is less than 2, then, so this is the if statement I added here, and I just added the condition that if the record, the row of column that role applied OIC and experience is less than 2, it means that that is invalid records, right? So for example, here you can see this is the record. This records having the experience role applied as a OIC developer, and experience is less than 1.5, right? Less than 2, that is 1.5. So that this record should be considered as a error record, right? So what I will do, instead of updating table here only, I will update the table in last here. And that in this case what I will do, I will just create one variable. That variable will hold the error message. So I will create the variable. So for creating the variable, we have to create variable inside the procedure after as and before begin. So I will create one variable name as lv, that's a local variable, and or that lv for local variable varchar, and we'll give the name as error message. And error message, and what kind of variable it will be, what type is the variable? So varchar 2, and we give the size as maximum size, which is 4000. So now this variable, so what I will do, so whenever this loop will start, I will update this variable by null values, right? So that this time, every time this loop will start, the variable, this variable will hold null values, and whenever any condition will fall true, it means that the record is invalid. So I will update the variable with the error message. So this is the variable. I will update the variable as uh, not qualified not qualified for OIC developer role. Okay, role. So this is the message I want to give in case of that having that that falls under this condition. So this is one condition we added. So now what is second business rule? The second business rule is if candidates applied for work from home option as a location with any role, that's fine, but that should have the more than 10 years of experience, 10 or 10 years of experience. So let me add this condition. So again I will use same here, will copy. So if x dot role apply is equals to that role apply, I don't need to go for that. So role apply, instead of role apply I have to just go for location. So if that x dot location is work from home, so WFH, right? The role is work from home and experience is 10, or it should write 10 or more than 10. It means that if experience is less than 10, it means that if any employee or any candidate having location selected as work from home and experience is less than 10, that should comes under the error, and the error should be like again. So instead of updating this variable, right, what I will do, I will concrete the message that it can be possible that that employee applied for OIC developer role, selected the location as work from home. So I wanted this condition also should be checked. So what I will do that loop variable is equals to error message and the message, and here we'll say not qualified for work from home. But here you can see, and let me add one more thing here, hyphen, right, so that this second can be, instead of hyphen let me add hash, so that this second error message can be concatenated. Now here you can see we have one more condition, but it should not be the case when that role applied is Redux developer. So here I will make sure that that work from applied experience is less than 10 and x dot role applied, sorry, x dot role applied is not equals to what, Redux developer. So somewhere we have here, right? So let's just verify this one is correct or not. So, and is we are writing double and only, right? Yeah, checking that what is the syntax error here. So experience is less than 10 and error is equals to, sorry, is not equals to Redux developer. That's fine. Why this error is showing here? Let's see, we'll check if we will have that error. Okay, so instead of double and it will be and only. So now here you can see if the location of the record having location as work from home, and the experience should be less than 10, less than 10, or instead of and there will be or role is not equals to Redux developer. So here any of the case, for example this Jack apply for work from home and this condition is not going to be true, that experience is not less than 10, experience is 10 only, so this will be false. And here you can see this is false, and role applied is not equals to Redux developer. So role applied is for not for Redux developer, that is technical, it is technical here. So here it will be equals to or not equals to Redux applied. What applied? Let's see that we will check that if condition is going to be false. Oh, not equals to Redux developer, then the message will be like not qualified for work from home. Now these two business validation is done. Now third validation is we have to check the PAN card number length, right? It should not be less than 10. So let's have add another condition, and here we will check PAN card. Where is the PAN column? This is the PAN column. Just copy this PAN column here, and we have to check the count length, right? So that's why we have length function. In SQL we have length function. That the length function is going to return you the total number of character in this column. So we have to check if length of this is not equals to 10. Even if there is more than 10 also, it should be error, right? So if that length is not equals to, as per business validation it's mentioned that less than 10, right? But if we have pan card number as 11th character, that is also invalid, right? So just I corrected here, but as while working on project you should not do this thing. You just have to clarify this point from functional so that they can just update the FSD and they can just correct it as a pan card should not be less than or greater than 10. So that should be that one. So yeah, I added the length of pan card is not equals to 10, then we will throw an error. And what will be the error? So error will be whatever error message will be there in that variable, that's fine, and just we will add invalid pan, invalid pan number. So these all are the business validation we added, right? So end of the day or end of the loop, when control will move here, so there will be two possibilities. The possibilities is our variable, this lv error variable, that lv error message variable will be empty. It means that none of the condition got for true, right? So none of the condition control move inside the condition. It means that this record qualify for all these business rule. It means that that record is valid. So here we have to add the condition: if this variable is null value, holding the null values, right? Then we have to update message as, we have to update that record, the table record, as a valid or valid, right? So here in this case we just have to write update query. So we'll write the update query, update, where is the table name? So this is our table name. Update this table and set status, right? So this is a status column. Let me copy the column. A status is equals to, what we have to set? We have to set as v as for valid, v as valid, and we have to update the process message too. So I will update the process message, comma, process message equals to validated. And also we have to update few who columns. That who columns is last update by or last update date. So last update date, I will select here, add sys date. Sys date is something like current date in OIC, and one more column, that is last updated by. So last updated by I will give as PL SQL block. Last updated by procedure. But which records? We don't want to update each and every record, right? So we want to update only a specific record for which this loop is going to iterate. So here this row ID, record ID, is the column which is uniquely identifying the each and every record. So here I will do, so update only record which is having the row ID. So I will add the condition here, and condition as where this record ID, right? So the record ID, it will not be independent record ID, right? So it will be x dot record ID. X is our loop variable. X is our loop variable. This loop variables, I will update only the records for which this loop iteration is working. Where x dot this, sorry, this where record ID is equals to x dot record ID. Record ID of the table is equals to x dot record ID. So this is our validation we added here. So now in case of, this is for the success case, right? So for success case, sorry, it will be move inside the if condition only. And for the error case, again we have to copy the same, and instead of valid we have to make add error e. And here error message, we have to, instead of error message providing hard coded value, so this variable is going to hold the error message, right? These all are the error message. So I will provide this error message here. So this error message will be updated. So last updated time will be sysdate time only, and last updated by only the hard-coded message we given that procedure, and it will update for the same loop record only. So by this way, right? By this way, our code will execute and it will iterate each and every record, and it will change the status of each and every record, either validated or error. So using once this PLSQL code will be executed, so our code will be completed, right? So our record updated will be updated by success or the validated or error. So now we have to invoke this PLSQL procedure from OIC. So just for testing, let me first create this package. So for creating the package, we have to update. Right now we are getting one error. So let's see that what is this error message saying that. Let me try to compile this code here. The code is that somewhere encounter the symbol, that's when one of the following loop. So somewhere we have done one additional, this one, let me check. So where is this? Okay, so this is the begin. So this begin and should not be there, right? Where is this loop? This loop is there and we have to end the loop also. So this is for this one, this is for this one, and these all there. So and the loop should be there here. So now here you can see we ended the loop. Everything got ended. Exception, is it correct spelling? Let me check. So this is the exception code here. No, okay. So there was some spelling mistake. So the spelling mistake was I added s here, right? So let me remove this one. And in exceptions, for example, if we got exception from any of the code, right, while executing this PLSQL code, we got exception while updating or checking anything. So we don't want to move process further. That's why we have parameters as PS status. So in case of any exception, we will update that variable PS status to error, and this error we will check in our OIC. And in case of success, our control will move here, and outside the loop we will make that as success. So here you can see in case of exception, we just updated the error message as error. That P status, this P status is the parameters of our procedure. And in case of success, obvious, if there will not be any error in our package, so control will move below the loop for each loop, and in this case we just updated the status as success. So this OIC will receive this value. So now we just have to compile this procedure. So to compile this procedure, just execute here. So everything will be fine. The package will be considered. So here we have one error. So that error is length. So I just use incorrect syntax for length. So length I use here length. That's the correct one, right? So let me execute this one again. So our package got executed. Where this error message came? Let me see again. Execute. length, sorry. So this is the length correct one. Let me execute. So our package got executed and it's compiled. You can see the package bodies got compiled. It means that everything is fine now. So before going to execute this package from OIC, let's execute this package manually so that we can check that everything is working fine or not. So that in OIC we can invoke the same procedure. So again, invoking the procedure, we can just add a code here. So first I will just write code here. Declare, I will create, because this package is having two parameters and one parameter is out. So this out will be held in variable only. So we have to create one variable. So lv underscore result varchar 2, and here we have to invoke that procedure. So invoking, this is the package name dot, this is the procedure, and this procedure is asking the parameters. The parameters is instance id. So this is our instance id that for which we have to execute. So this is our instance id. Let's have a copy of this instance id. So this is the first parameter is instance id, and second parameter is out parameter, which will return the response a result, and the result will be held in this variable. So that's we given, and after that I just want to display the message which coming from this procedure. So for that we have to provide the message log message. So we'll use dbms underscore output dot put line, and So here we have to use this variable. So now this is done. For that, first let me enable the output set. Now I'm just going to execute the procedure. So same way where we executed here, somewhere where we have done mistake, unusual PSQL compiler error. So let me compile this declaration, package body, and let's have a again. Where is this error coming? Validate that's they are providing correct value. Hmm. Into clause. Where is into? Like a start from this one where this that's actually fine. Well, so here we have to execute this code. Numeric values. So let me first debug that one. So declare number 2. Where is this 2 we added? Mm, so where we have error v and e, error process message. Magic error. Let me just debug that error message. So the error is here p integration unique id we given as a number. That's the incorrect, right? So we are passing these values as a alphanumeric values, right? We consider this as a integration instance id. So instead of this instance id as a number, we will use as varchar2. Varchar2. So now let's compile this package again. So how I identify that when I added executed this code, right? So I just added the log message in just whenever that begin started, right? So even we are not able to see the log message in our error message. So that's I got to know that control is not moving inside this begin. So that identify easily that error is here in this before starting the package only. So I just compile the package again. That oh, is there any error here? Okay. So the error is here you can see. Yeah, correct, correct. So here we updated the varchar data type for this parameters, but in the specification we didn't update it. So just compile this one. That's compiled, and now our package is also compiled. So just execute the same code again. So when we executed this one, package got compiled, and you can see we got stated as success, and you can see this is the log message which I added inside the PLSQL. You can see inside the loop I just added to print the log record id as a log. That's why this record id is log is displaying here. So that's fine, no need to that. We can also comment this value but let it be same. So our PLSQL package is ready, and let's see that it's updated the value or not. So if we will go to the table, and yeah, let's go to table. This is our table, and if we will check this table, you can see a set of this table is changed. So what got changed? It got error for each and every message, right? So it's updated with error only. So why it's updated with error? Let's have a look on that. So if you will go to this code, let me remove this code here. So this is the error message. Okay, so here you can see in case of it's validated we have success. What is the error message here? In case of invalid record, that's fine that we have the error message not qualified for OIC developer role, invalid PAN card number. But in this case it should be success, but why it says error? Okay, so error is maybe that condition we added, right? So length is 0. Every time it's going to falls under this one only, else only. So instead of that checking 0, so let's have a check on this where is equals to single quotes only. That same message. So let me compile this package again. And let's run this package and let's check. Again, it's having the same message. Somewhere we have done in this code logic. So let me check. The control is not going inside the if statement. So the variable message is going to store this one only. So let me print the length here. Where is this message? After the condition checked, so I'm just going to put length length. So that's compiled. Going to compile this code again. So length of variable is 37. That's fine. Length of variable is okay. So in case of that, we are not getting the count as length. So if we are not going to get the count, so then how we can check? Okay. So what we can do, let's put one space here. So now this time its count will be 1. It should count as 1. So here you can see, in case of here, we when we initialize this variable, with this variable we given one space, right? So this space, it means that if control will not move inside any of the if statement, our size of this variable will be 1 only. If control will move inside any of the if statement, our length of this variable will be increased and it will be moved by 1. So here I will just add a conditions to check the length, and I will make length is equals to 1. So if length is equals to 1, it means that we don't have any error and that will be considered as a validated record. So let me compile this package again and let me execute this code. So here you can see it's got executed length 1 times 111, and let's have a look on the table. You can see this time the status got changed to validated, 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 and few records got invalidated and considered as a error, and error with the error message that not qualified for work from home. And if you will see the reason what not qualified for work from home, so whatever our business rule is that if candidate applied for work from home and option as location with any role, right, that can be fine, but experience should be more than 10 years, 10 or 10 years, or it should have the reduced developer. So here you can see this got not qualified because they applied for role as a work from home, the location as work from home, but having experience is 6 only, and the role is EBS developer, EBS functional. That's the reason. If any candidate having experience less than 10 years and applied for work from home, that role should be EBS, that role should be that what was the VBCS Redux developer only. So you can see this one, this is the one record which applied for Redux developer having experience less than 10 years and applied for work from home, applied for Noida work from home. Is there any? No. So these all are the valid scenarios only, right? So let's move to the integration part only, where we will invoke this package and we'll see that remaining part. So let it be the same. Go to integrations. Now our integration is ready. You go back. So I will just update this integration to add remaining logic. And for that remaining logic, we have to add here. So as we just inserted the record into table, after that we just have to invoke the PLSQL code. So this if is fine, that this condition is to check that if we have record or not. So yes, we have file at file server. That file we downloaded, we read the file and we inserted into table. And after that, we just have to add that PLSQL call. So again, for adding the PLSQL call, we have to select the ATP connections. So this is our ATP connection. I will add, and I will give the name as validate ATP, validate procedure ATP. This is the name I given. I will select that invoke as stored procedure. That's fine. Continue. And here we have to again select the schema, select the package name, and then we have to select the table. So what was the schema name? A schema name was ATP user, and inside that ATP user we have the package. So what is the package name? So our package name is FOS candidate int package. So let me go, you can see this is our package name. So when I selected the package name, so whatever procedure inside the package name, that will be listed below, you can see. So there is only one procedure, that is validate candidate. So I selected this procedure here and will go for continue. So once you will go for continue, you will be able to see the basic details. Even it asking that and mentioning the same, if your procedure is going to get more than 4 minutes of time, you just have to change the concept by adding the fire and forget concept. So we'll cover it later in our coming session. Click on finish. So once you will click on finish, your endpoint will be configured to invoke the PLSQL procedure. And you can see for this PLSQL procedure, we have one parameters, that parameters as in. So we have to pass these parameters, and this parameters value is storing the integration instance ID, this one, right? So this we will get from metadata. So go to the mapping, and this P integration unique ID is will get from the instance ID integration metadata runtime, and this is the instance ID. So I will map this instance ID here, validate, go back. So here you can see in our PLSQL code, we added logic that if we will get a exception anywhere in our code, if we will get exception, control will move inside this exception block and status will be error. So we just have to, before proceeding further, we just have to add the condition to check that success only, right? So I will add the switch here to check the condition or check the status of this call, PLSQL call. So I will add the switch here, and here I will give the condition as if procedure call success. And now which condition we have to check? So if you will use endpoint name is validate procedure ATP. Where is validate procedure ATP? This one, right? Expand this one, and you will be able to see the response. And this response is p underscore status. This is the same parameters we had here. You can see p underscore status. So now I will drag this p underscore status here, and we have to check if p underscore status is equals to what is equals to success. So what is the success message? This one, success, right? Now our response is success, then only we will move forward. And move forward, what we have to do, we have to extract all the validate records, right? So how we can extract? So again we have to use the SQL queries that select all the columns from table where status is, so where integration instance is this one, but with and status is equals to v is for validate, you can see v is for validate, right? So if we will execute, all the validated record we will get, and the same validated record we have to get in OIC also, right? We have to get validated record only in OIC. So I will just copy this query from here. I will go to OIC and will add one more ATP endpoint. So this is our ATP endpoint, and here we will give the message as select valid records underscore ATP. And here we have to execute SQL query. So I will use run SQL statement, go continue and write. So instead of providing these hard coded values as an instance ID, we have to provide from runtime, we'll make it parameters. So we will have to use hash for parameters. We'll give a p underscore and instance ID, and the status is v, that's fine. Just validate the query and continue, finish. So our ATP endpoint added to extract the all validated record from table. So here we have to provide the instance ID in the mapper, so that based on that instance ID, it will fetch the data from database table. So this is p instance ID, the parameters we added, and the instance ID again we will get from the metadata runtime and instance ID. Validate, go back. So now here you can see by using this endpoint we will get multiple records from table, and that records, all records will be validated records. Now this information we have to send over the email as per our requirement. So our requirement was same only, right? That valid record to be sent over the notification, right? For the hiring process and something like that. right? And you can see the same we mentioned that we get all the validated record from ATP DB and process all the record one by one. Just we have to add for each loop and send the records over the email notifications. So for that, first we have to add the for each loop here on this response of this selected validated record. So I will select for each loop here, and we have to select the repeated element coming from this node, that select valid record. So select valid record, where is select valid? You can see this is the select valid record. So this is request, where is the response? This is the, where is response of this select valid record? Let me have a search. Okay, so we are not able to see this response just because our which we try to add, that's before this node, right? So click outside. Here you can see we just have to click inside this for each loop. Oh sorry, here just expand this for each loop, click here, and this just go and save this select. Where is this select? This is the request, not we have to again. Let me add here, click here, this is the for each we added after this one only. Let's see why we are not able to see select SELE. It should, okay, so the second select is, where is the second select? Let me save first. This ATP endpoint is giving us the result. Let's have this result only. Run SQL statement. Select, that's fine. It's going to give us result. And let me see that we are able to see this result here or not. Mm, Run SQL statement. That's fine. All the validated record we will get. Validate again. Continue. Finish. This for each loop we have to add that one. Okay. We have to select. We are not able to see. So now here you can see what mistake we have done. I just analyze and get to know that here we added the semicolon, right? So that's why due to semicolon we are not able to get the response of this endpoint. That's what the reason, right? So we know that the in the select query, in the query SQL queries, right, we cannot pass semicolon here. Even that's valid, but it will not, in this case it will not show you that values. So here what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to remove the semicolon and map. So once I added this one, updated this endpoint, it's showing that error because the mapper got deleted. So I just have to add the mapper here. So I will just add the manually mapper here, and just once you will map the mapper, it will ask you for which endpoint you want to map the map, add the mapper. So it's not showing anything. Let me click here. We'll provide the map here. So this mapper will be for select valid record. So this is automatically coming select valid record. That's fine. Click on create. So mapper automatically got added, and we have to provide the mapping value. So which mapping value we have to provide? The instance ID which we given in the SQL queries. So this is the instance ID, and this instance ID we will get from the integration metadata at runtime, right? So runtime details, we have the instance ID. Let's map it here. Validate and go back. So now you can see using this endpoint, we got the validated record. We have to add the loop over there. So just click here to add the loop. Earlier we were not able to get the loop just because that we have the error in this endpoint. So you can see in this time we are able to see this select valid records. This is the endpoint. Select valid record, and response of this endpoint we want in the for each loop. So just expand, and we'll expand this endpoint that select valid record. And this is the array element we have to map here. Right? Let me give the name for this for each loop. I will give the name as valid records for each, and we have to create the variable for each. So I will give the name same underscore loop var. So just click outside so that loop can be configured. So that, for example, in this case, how many records we will get as valid? So there will be 3 to 5 records validated. So loop will iterate 5 times, and all these 5 times we have to add the email notification. So for adding the email notification, I will just drag the email here, and I have to select the two. So obvious, I created variable which has stored the two emails. So two email will come from variable. From email also will come from variable. I don't want to provide VCC or CC. And the subject. So subject will be something that selected candidate for interview. So this is our subject, and body, right? Here we have to add the body. So for providing the body, I just specify or created a template, email template, which I will use here. So here you can see this is the email template that I created. So as we know that in email body we can provide the XML code also. You can see HTML code. So I just created this HTML code here. And if you will see this HTML output of this HTML code, so let me go to that live HTML editor, and I will show you the response, right? Or the output of this code. So if I will pass here, you can see the output of this XML code will be like, dear recruiter, recruitment team. Same I mentioned here, dear recruitment team. Please find the below details of shortlisted candidate for further process. And here you can see this is the CSS I added just for styling the table, and after that this is the table details, right? Candidate name, this is the parameter we will pass. This parameter we will pass in the notification mapping. The candidate name, candidate date of birth, role applied, experience, and applied location, right? And this is system generated. All these things I generated using this XML code, right? HTML code. So this is our HTML code. I will just copy this HTML code and I will paste it in the notification. So this is our email body. I will pass it here. So in the body, I just provided complete HTML code here. So now in the HTML code, you can see there is few parameters. The parameters is candidate name, and from where we will get this candidate name? We will get this candidate name from the loop variable, right? So here loop variable, because the loop variable is going to hold the validated record. So I just click outside. That's why it's removed. So click here, and just as we added the parameters here, but we didn't define the parameter here. That's why it's showing error. So just click on these parameters and copy and paste, create all parameters one by one. So p candidate name, and from where we will get the p candidate name value? So p candidate name value we will get from the loop variable, and loop variable it will be, so sorry, here record id is only there. So just because when we were getting error we updated that one. So let me go back and edit this endpoint. So instead of this record id, I make a star, so that all column we will get from this query. Continue, finish, and that's done, right? So go to notification again, and if you will open this one, and where is the mapping for this? So where mapping for this is loop var. We will expand this loop variable, you will be able to see all this column, right? So candidate name is the p candidate name. Now what is the second parameter? Second parameter is candidate job. So click on here and let's put the candidate job. And what is the mapping? So mapping again, it will be loop variable and the job applied, right? So you can see role applied. So this is the one, and after that, which is the latest parameters? That's the role up. Okay. So candidate job, job is candidate. What is the job here? Somewhere is that? No, there is no job column, right? Candidate job. No, there is no job column. So that code is correct. So instead of candidate job, I will remove this candidate job. So it will be role applied only, experience and applied location, right? So this will only be there. So let me copy this one, and where is this body? So I will replace this body here, and the body name is fine. So candidate name, it's showing error. So let me check why it's showing error. So let me remove this one, loop variable, and this is the name. So that's one done. Role applied, that is fine. Candidate job, so no candidate job, we know that role applies parameters is there. Remove this one, add the parameters. The parameters name will be role applied, and role applied will get coming from this value, that is the role applied. Now two parameters done. Third parameter is experience. So again I will create one more parameters with the name of the same which we given in the square bracket. You can see the curly braces. So I will give experience, and from where we will get the experience, it will be again get from the loop variable, that the experience. Now last is a location, right? So I will give the name as location, and where the location, so go loop var and location, this one. Now so these all four parameters which we have in our notification body template, we defined that one. So now it's time to just click outside so that this will be validated, the notification will be validated. So now our endpoint is done, right? So same way, instead of adding the notification, you can invoke any REST API or any web services to pass this validated record to any third party system or whatever you want. Just for brief purpose, I added the notification, and you can see everything will be fine, right? So after once that will be completed, so it will come outside that one and all. And after that, what we have to do, even we don't require this otherwise. And after that, here we have to add logic to extract all the error records and create one file and send over the email, right? That was also the requirement, right? So this switch is for checking that the procedure completed successfully or not. So inside the process completed successfully only, we have to do all these things. So here now again we have to add the ATP endpoint to get all the valid all the error records, right? So I will add here. Hmm, I will go to the ATP again, and we'll see that select error records ATP. This time I will add endpoint name. Select error records underscore ATP. And again I will go for SQL statement. And what was the query last time I used? I used query that select star from this column where integration ID is equals to A, and the status of valid I will go for error, and semicolon we should not take, so I will remove this semicolon. Sorry, this is the description. So run SQL statement, that's fine. Go continue. Write the query here, and here instead of providing this instance ID hard code, it will be provided as a parameter. So we'll give the name p underscore instance ID, right? Validate and continue and finish. So now we added ETP and point to get the error records or the invalid records. So here we have to provide the instance ID in the mapping. So instance ID will get from the integration metadata at runtime instance ID, right? So validate and go back. So our endpoint is configured to get the error records. Now we have to add a stage file to write the file, right? So what we have to do, even instead of adding the stage file, we can directly write the file at file server, but we don't need to write, right? We just have to create the file in OIC, so that same file we can send over the email, right? So just let me add one stage file here, and you can see in a stage file what all column we have to add. So all the column which we receive from the file. So this all column we receive, we have already the sample file here. Same file, sample file we will use while creating the file. So we'll give the name as write error files underscore stage. Continue. Select the operation as write, as we have to write the file. And what kind of file name will be there? So file name I just want to give as whatever file we receive. So file we receive from the file server, and what is the file name? So we'll get from the list file. So let me have a list file. So in the list file, this is the file, and inside the file we have the file name. And obviously it can multiple files, so we'll use array element here, file of one. So first file I want to give, so this is the file name we will receive from file server, and the same file we will add the error records, right? Instead of checking or updating anything. And just here we'll give the name as slash OIC only. Let in OIC we want to create the file with this file name, and just continue. What file we want to create? We want to create CSV file. That's done. And here we have to provide the sample file, a sample file which you already created, the sample candidate file, right? So I will just click here, select the sample candidate file, and give the name as R, and RS for record set. And here I will make all column as optional. Will first will make as a mandatory. That's done. Go continue, finish. So now we successfully able to configure the endpoint to write the file. Just we have to provide the mapping. So mapping will come from here only. But remember, this mapping will have only data, right? It's not having the header. And we know that header is also a data for this endpoint. So first we will just create a copy of this node. So this is inside the rs we have r. So we'll create a copy of this r, that's the repeated node, that we can say create a repeated node. So now you can see we have two r. So the first r will have hard coded value, second we will provide the mapping. So this is name, so we'll give the column name as name only, and the second one will give the name as dob only, dob. Now we have to provide the value for role column, so that will be our header only, so we'll give as role, and it will be experience, and then we have location, uh, location, and after that we have the pan column. And here in this one, we have to provide the data coming from the error records from the ATP table. So what is the node? So node name was select error something like, right? This one, select error response. So expand this one. This is the array element. So we'll map this array map with array so that all the records will created in single time. Candidate name with name, DOB, candidate DOB with DOB, and the role with role applied, experience with experience, and the location with location, and pan with pan. But here we have done one more mistake, right? While writing the error file, we have to add error message too, right? So as this status and process message we are getting from file, right? So in this simple file, we have to add one more column. So let's add one more column as status and message or error message. So it can be anything. So let it be the same. Just save this file, and I have to upload this file here. So just validate. We have to add two more column here. So I will update the structure again. Go back, this is the stage file, continue, 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 upload the file again. So this file having now additional two columns, make all as optional, make as mandatory, and you can see the two column as, that's the problem with generation 3, right? So it's automatically every time going to be reloaded, so that's the problem. No issues, we'll configure this endpoint again. So go back in the last, this is the endpoint. Let's see that the file we uploaded that is there or not. So you can see no, it's set. Let me load this again. Continue, continue, continue. So here you can see we don't have the columns. What happening? Let's add again. So here we have to upload the file again. So as we don't have the columns, I will upload the file. Go below, make all column as optional, select the first as mandatory, and if you will see the two column we added, it's there, right? So just click on continue. Before that it's again got left. So now in the mapper we have to add two mapping for this two column again, right? So just double click in the mapper, you will be able to find the two column. So expand this one, and here you can see status. So status, I will provide the hard coded message as status, and this the error message. Error message will come from the PL/SQL code only, right, which we added. Error message, and if you will expand the second node too, you will get two columns. So again this two column we are getting from the second select error node only. So just go above and you can see the error, the status I mapped here. Let me map this status here. and the error message to the process message. So that's done, right? So our mapping is done to create a file. So our file is created in OIC. Even this file we can write at file server or we can send an email. So our requirement is to send our email only. So I will add one more notification here, and that notification will contain the attachment. So I will give the notification name as error file underscore notification. And again, 2 I will get from the variable. That's the reason behind using that variable and all. So that every time we don't have to write the same value. We know that we have to use that value somewhere. So just we created variable, right? So from email will map here. Subject will be that the invalid candidates files. In body we have to pass some value like heighten. Please find attach CSV file which contains candidates which got rejected in validation. Regards, OIC support team. Even we can add the file name also here. So how we can add the file name? So I will give the name file name, and in the square bracket we have to give parameters. So p underscore file name, and this is the parameter which we created. So I will copy the name, go below, create the parameters here, and where we will get the file name. So we will get the file name. It's not loading, right? So just go outside. Edit this again somewhere. This set. So let me edit this integration. Let me just save these changes. I hope this notification is there, but let's see. We have no, we don't have anything. So again, let me add two. So to email. Now we have to go for B from. I don't want to go for CC and BCC anything. From is there. Subject. So what subject we had given? So given as invalid records file. So this is the error message I was want to as a subject body. So body was heighten. Please find below attached file which contains candidates inform candidates who got rejected in validation, and file name. So we have to create the parameters for file name. So we require parenthesis p underscore file name. This file name we will create in below as a parameters, and what is the name? So regards OIC support team. That's fine. Click on this parameters to add the parameters. Here we added this one. Go below, and where is the file name? That file name we generated using the dot error stage. So where we have write stage, you can see write error stage. Expand this one. Inside the ICS we have the properties, and the properties we have the file name. So this is file name. Just drag this file name here. So now done. We have to add the attachment. So attachment we will add from file reference. So click here. Again search for this write error. Expand. This is the response of this write stage, and here you can see file reference mapped here. So that's done. Click outside. So our notification added. Our integration is completely ready to execute. So just save, and let me have a brief on this integration. You can see we created this large integration. So just we added and assign endpoint to create variable which holds some values. After that we listed the file from file server, and we check if we have the file at file server, the count is greater than 0. Then we are downloading the file. We are reading that specific file. We are downloading the file, we are reading the file, and whatever response we get in the data in read stage, we inserted the record into table. We added the PL/SQL code to do the validations, and that PL/SQL code procedure is going to return a status as success or error. And if status is success, then only we are going to move further and selecting all the validated record. We added a loop over the validated record and added the notification inside the loop so that each and every record will be sent over the email using the below for other format, right? So this is the format for our email, right? And now after that, we added ATP endpoint to select all the error records. We added a stage file to create the error file. And then we added email notification to send the all error file, right? So that's the logic we added. So now our integration is ready. Go back and run this integration and let's see that what's happening. So let me activate this integration. And just we have to run this integration. So before running, let me remove all the records present in table just for brief so that it will be easy for identify, or let it be the same. What's happening? We will just use the instance ID to identify, right? So let me run this integration. So when I will run this integration, it will take a bit time to execute. Till now, let me open this email so that I can check that we receive email or not. So integration is going to be executed. You can see it's in the process of invoking that, inserting record ATP. After that, it will process further, do all the validations and all whatever we logic we added. And you can see integration is going to process. Let's have, you can see we got an email is that selected candidate for interview. This is the first email we receive, and you can see, dear candidate, dear recruitment team, please find below details of shortlisted candidate for further process. And this is the candidate's name, Jeff Bozer, Redwood developer, experience 5 and location Noida. You can see this is one email, this is another email, this is the third email, this is the fourth email, and this is the five email. We got five validated record, right? So that was the correct scenarios only, right? And we got one email, which email contained the invalid records. You can see this is the email. We see that, hi team, please find attached file which contain candidate who got rejected in validations. File name, you can see this is the same file name we given mapping, and this is the file name. If you will open the file, as we added the header, that's why this file contain header too. And you can see the file contain the error message too. So let's see that what is the error message. So this file is already there. So let me delete this, close this file first, this one. So because the name having the same. So now let me down open this downloaded file. You can see this is the reverse fit file file we generated, and you can see all these five. So in the file we have 10 record, 5 record got success, this file got fail. And what is the reason behind falling? You can see not qualified for work from home, right? You can see, so we say that work from home will be only allowed to candidate which having more than 10 years of experiences. Of any candidate who is not having 10 years of experience, that role applied should be Redwood developer. So no one candidate is like that. So you can see next is not qualified for work from home plus invalid PAN number. You can see PAN number is 336 and 9 character only. That's one reason. And also they applied for work from home, they are having 10 years of experience only, but our condition was, our requirement was that should be more than 10 years, right? So that's the reason here it's having that one. And the not qualified for OIC developer role, as we know that OIC developer should have more than or equals to 2 years of experience. It's having only 1.5 years of experience. And you can see invalid PAN card. So again here this candidate having PAN card, invalid PAN card as in 9 character only. So that's the logic we added. And if you will see all the validated record we already got over the email by the notification. And you said that, I hope that the notification you like that one, right? The way this notification generated in the table format. So that's why we required HTML code to generate email notification in such a way. So I hope you like this video. We just didn't added the archive process. We can also add the archive process of the file. So we already know that how we can archive. So let's connect to the next session. Thank you so much for joining.